Hi, I'm Diane Moyer, and I am one of the co-authors of the two books, Broken to Whole, Inner Healing for the Fragmented Soul, and Divine Healing of the Spirit, Soul, and Body. Both of these books, we brought up the concept of fragments. During the past year, the Lord has brought some new information to my repertoire, I guess you would call it, and I wanted to share that information with you. A lot of it really deals with how you can bring healing to your fragments yourself, where you don't need the help of someone like me or another prayer counselor, but it is something that you can actually do even daily as different fragments arise. I'm going to start first off with, in the book, we talked about fragments being created times when we go through trauma or other woundedness. And that is true. But God has expanded my knowledge, and I realized that our fragments have certain jobs. They're not there by mistake. They are created through woundedness, but there's a way to healing for them that's actually quite simple. They also have jobs. One of their jobs is to carry our memories. This is both positive and negative memories, not just the negative ones. And what we want to do is we want to see these fragments healed so they're operating in what I consider the positive part of our soul, where they're carrying positive things instead of negative things. And this would mean that our areas of woundedness, we need to get the fragments that are carrying those memories healed so that they can now be on the positive side where they're carrying something positive. They're carrying an encounter with God. They're carrying something that God has deposited into them. And when they're on the positive side of our soul, we can live through what they have been revealed, you know? So other jobs that our fragments have, uh, well, we know that we have three core identities. We have the intellectual part, which I feel that these fragments that are carrying the intellectual part of our thing, these are the ones that we can most rationalize with. We can say, well, you know what the word says, right? That type of thing. And they can get healed that way. They're very simple, easy, because they have understanding. They're not reacting out of emotion. They're not reacting out of anything else but that intellectual functional part. The other ones are carrying our emotions. These were the ones from the emotional side of our brain, the emotional core identity. And you can read more about this in our book, Divine Healing for the Spirit, Soul, and Body. Uh, this information is in there. You can receive it. It's, easier to understand when you're reading it there because Matt really went into a lot of depth in this part of the book. So anyway, the emotional ones, these are the fragments that are carrying our emotions. A lot of times, even if we choose to react positively, we still have the negative there, the negative emotions. So somebody might hurt us and we choose to respond in a positive way, oh, it's from their own woundedness, whatever. But the hurt that they gave us is still there, and that becomes a fragment of our soul that carries that in our subconsciousness. The third job that our fragments do would be the guardians. These are the ones that want us to be secure. These are the ones that try to mitigate hurt, try to cause us to live a life where we are not hurt. They put up this. These are the ones that they really can be controlling as they try to control our outside situations so that we're not wounded. These ones also need healing. They're actually the hardest ones of all of them to get healed. Now, how do we heal our fragments? The easiest way, and the majority, are healed by saying 5 simple words. Lord, come heal these fragments. That's it. Lord, come heal these fragments. I have noticed a lot of times somebody will be getting a headache when we're talking. That's a sign that your fragments are manifesting. It's headaches that come with no medical reason. If all of a sudden you start getting headache or a migraine, a lot of times those are your fragments. You say those 5 simple words or something similar, they don't have to be those exact words. Lord, come heal these fragments. You will notice that headache goes away almost immediately. I have seen this happen over and over and over again as people have practiced this. It's not only just headaches, any type of sudden onset of pain. A couple of weeks ago, I started getting pain right here in my upper jaw area. I said, Lord, come heal these fragments. there is almost like a confusion there for a second and then total healing. I've seen people, stomach pain, they pray that stomach pain has left right away. Another big area, shoulders, neck, back, any of those locations, anywhere actually on your body. You can even get it in your knees, your legs, ankles, anywhere where fragments could be, residing due to trauma or anything else. All you have to do is say, Lord, come heal these fragments, and you will notice the pain leaves immediately. Now, please understand, there cannot be a medical cause. If you have a medical reason for these pains, won't leave. But if it's caused by fragments, just by saying those 5 simple words, the pain goes and those fragments are healed. Now, again, a lot of times people will say, well, I prayed and the pain went, but what I was thinking about, I started thinking about it again and I started getting pain again. Does that mean that God really didn't heal it? And the answer is no. We have different layers of fragments. You have to understand, when you go through something as an adult, usually it isn't the first time you went through it. If you're going through rejection, you probably have been rejected multiple times in your life. So you would have multiple fragments carrying those feelings of rejections or the memories of rejections or whatever. So you might have to pray that multiple times to get through all the layers. Doesn't mean that they weren't initially healed. Of course they were. That's why the pain left. How could the pain leave if they weren't healed? What happens is we have to go through all those layers, and that's normal. And don't get hung up on, well, I should never have thought that again. Rationalize it. Realize that, what, this has happened multiple times. I have to go through multiple layers. Sometimes people might only have 3 or 4 layers. I've seen right now, the most I've seen in somebody has been 29, and I'm sure that will go up. As I continue ministering in this area, because everybody's different, and how many times somebody might have went through it, maybe 100 times, so they might have 100 layers. So don't ever weary from doing this. I always tell people it's best to pray this, because if you pray it and it doesn't work, well, no harm, no foul. It's not like you're screwing yourself up, you're not cursing yourself, nothing like that. Just didn't work. But if you pray it and it works, then you just received healing. You did it on your own. You didn't have to pay somebody to go and get ministry for them or anything like that. You're able to do it. And the more you can do, you have to understand, how many memories do you have? You've been alive a long time. So you have multiple memories in there that need healing. So, to say that we have 100,000, maybe even 1 million fragments is not wrong. We do have a lot. And if we can do this on our own, if we can do it daily, if we can do it every time we have a pain that comes up that's unexplained, then we're just going to, get ourselves to the place where we're living out of the positive side over the negative side that much quicker. Some other signs fragments are there when memories come up. You're being triggered. Something happens and you start having all these memories. You're being triggered. Your fragments are being triggered. They want healing. Lord, come heal these fragments. So anytime you start, kind of going down memory lane, just start praying that. Lord, can heal these fragments. Allow them to come up. Allow them to get healing. Just keep praying that as they come up. Allow yourself to go down memory lane every chance you get. Because what you're doing, especially when you're dealing with the negative memories, is you're bringing healing to them and you're having them cross over from the negative side to the positive side. That's what we want. We want to see that. Whenever I had my accident last year and I lost my leg, a lot of people were like, oh, you were so positive through it. And we really admired that. But the reason why I was positive through it is because my positive side, through all the healing I had had, was higher. It was easy for me to live from the positive side. It wasn't something like I had to dig deep every day and try to be positive. Because of the healing I had received, it just flowed out of me. I mean, I was not in any shape. I mean, let's face it, over 40 hours of anesthesia, I was not in a shape. My mind still hasn't recovered. I was not in a shape to choose to be positive every day. I did because that side was higher, so it was naturally what I lived out of. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is what we want as Christians. We want to live out of the positive side. We don't want to continue out of the side of woundedness and hurt. I'm trying to think of some other things that trigger it. Like I said, memories, any type of pain, emotion coming out of it, nowhere. All of a sudden you're feeling depressed. Okay, you have a fragment that came up. You need to deal with that. You need to say, Lord, come heal this fragment. anger, any type of emotional response. Another one, because one of their jobs is protecting us. They're our guardians. Anytime we see ourselves trying to control situations so that we're not hurt, trying to, maybe getting frustrated or angry, anyway, we're having an emotional response to protect ourselves. That is a sign that, fragments are stirred up and they're operating. Like I said, the most common way to get healing, Lord, come heal these fragments. I would say that probably works 80 to 90% of the time. But there are times when that doesn't work. One of these times is maybe, I think mostly it's for the protector ones, because they tend to be the strongest. They tend to be the ones that think they know what's best for us. And so they tend to be a little bit more harder to get them to accept healing. So sometimes you'll be like, Lord, come heal these fragments, and you'll hear thoughts that are against God. Like, yeah, you've prayed that how many times and God hasn't helped you. You've done this and, God isn't, it's something against God, where they're angry with God. You can tell they're angry with God, or they're blaming God. In those cases, you don't fight with them. You don't sit there. And remember, these are your own thoughts. So it's kind of hard, to tell sometimes. Sorry, I'm trying to get this into a better position. It's kind of hard because since they're your own thoughts, you're thinking them, but it's actually them speaking inside of you. And so they'll say something against God, and you might feel bad. Oh my God, of course it's not true. God always is there. He never leaves us or forsakes us, or whatever. Don't do that. Okay, easier said than done, but don't do that. Instead, say, you know what? You make a good point. Kind of like if you're out evangelizing somebody. If you go and you start getting into an argument with them as to why they should receive Jesus, into a debate, it becomes about who wins. We don't want that. We want them to know, we want to affirm them. We want them to know that, they have a good point. And so that's usually what I would say to them. I would say, you know what, you got a great point. Or, you really got me wondering. Let's ask Jesus about that. And that's all I do. Let's ask Jesus about that. Let's ask what he has to say. And you don't have to stay there and listen. You don't have to worry about hearing God. You don't have to, in all of this, you don't have to worry about hearing God. You don't have to sit there and meditate for hours. Okay, God, come answer. Come heal these fragments. Now come answer that. No, you don't. You just say it and you go on with your day. Same way with these ones that are, bringing the negative there. You just say, okay, that's a good point. Let's ask the Lord about this. Then go on with your day, because you connected them with Jesus. You connected them with the Lord. You don't have to stay there and wait. You don't have to hear God. It's for them to hear God, not you. You know the truth. You know what the scripture says. You know that God never leaves you or forsakes you. You're not the one with the problem. They are. So you leave them there in the presence of the Lord. Now, all this is based upon the fact, it's not based on faith. I'm going to give you an example in a moment of how I know it's not based on faith. But what we're trying to do is just get them connected with God. It's up to them to hear God, not you. They are the ones that are hurt. They're the ones that are wounded. And when you call upon the Lord, he will answer you. So we want him to come and answer them. So how do I know that it's not based on faith? Well, very simply, my son came to me a couple months ago, and he came downstairs. It was early on a Sunday morning. Well, early for me. And he was like, Mom, he goes, I just got this really bad headache, back of my neck, lower part of my head. I'm like, oh, did you sleep on it wrong? And he's like, no, just came out of nowhere. I'm like, okay, it's a fragment. So I'm like, Lord, come heal this fragment. And I'm like, wait, no, Lord, come heal these fragments. And my son just looked at me. He goes, well, why'd you change it to plural? I'm like, well, because I felt, the Lord telling me to. He's like, wow. He goes, that was interesting. He said, it was in the back of my neck, but when you said fragments, it's on top of my head. I'm like, oh, okay. I said, well, is the pain gone? He's like, I'll tell you in 5 minutes. I'm like, is the pain gone? He's like, I'll tell you in 5 minutes. And at this point, I start laughing because I know what's going on. He cannot believe that pain is gone. He can't wrap his head around it. He just cannot believe it. And so, David, I said, if the pain is gone or not. Is the pain gone? He's like, yeah, but give me 5 minutes to make sure. He had no faith that had happened, but he experienced it. So the next time he had pain and he came down, and I'm like, Lord, come heal these fragments. He didn't even question it. He's like, yeah, I'm fine, and went on with his day. That quick, that fast. for those who are so used to calling upon God, waiting months for an answer, this seems to be too good to be true. But I have seen it replayed over and over again. In fact, I'll tell you how it came about. If you read the books, you will notice in the books that I tend to go in the spirit realm to bring healing to people. So I would go into the spirit realm, find their fragments, and then spend, a good 20 minutes to a half hour finding out why the fragment's there, what it was carrying, introducing it to the Lord, watching to see what healing the Lord brings to it, seeing if the Lord took it into the garden or, put it back into their system, whatever. And it took a while and it took a lot of energy. And one night about 2:30 in the morning, I had somebody write me on Facebook. And as most of you know, I lost my leg through amputation last year. And so the phantom pain keeps me up. I'm lucky if I fall asleep before 4 or 5 a.m. Some days it's 8 a.m. That's how bad it was. Well, at 2:30 in the morning, she wrote me and she's like, "Is a headache a sign of a fragment?" Well, I knew that was true. So I was thinking, yeah, but the thought of going in the spirit realm and doing all that for a half hour at 2:30 in the morning, I was tired. So I'm like, oh, Lord, just go heal that fragment, And so I wrote her back and I said, yeah. I said, is it gone? And she wrote me back and said, yes. I'm like, what? That worked? That actually worked? I was like kind of taken aback. So the next night she wrote me again and she's like, is slurring your words the sign of a fragment? I'm like, well, yeah, that could be, So I did the same thing. And then I wrote her back and she's like, yeah, it's gone. I'm like, am I making this harder than it needs to be? So since then I haven't been going in the spirit realm and doing all of that. I have actually just gone and found them and just introduced them to the Lord, and just that's it. I haven't bothered to find everything out about them. But I noticed that I started having a lot of fragments coming up due to my surgery and all the trauma I went through. There just started being a number of fragments coming up. So I asked the Lord, I'm like, Lord, teach me how to deal with these fragments so that I can share it with everybody else. Not everybody can go in the spirit realm. I can go in the spirit realm and deal with mine, but if you teach me how to do it without going in the spirit realm, then I can teach everybody else how to do it, because there's just too many of these. We all have too many of them to just rely upon prayer counseling appointments. You're going to spend thousands of dollars getting all of them healed up. Why not learn how to do it ourselves? That, saves us a lot of money. And not only that, it can bring healing to you faster. So the first way he showed me was just what I shared with you. Lord, come heal these fragments. Then the second way was when, they start talking back to you and stuff, just introduce them, yeah, you make a good point. Let's see what the Lord has to say. Now, for the ones that are really tough, the guardians that really don't want to get healed, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how the Lord did it in me so that you have examples to hold on to. Because there's actually, like I said, this is a very small percentage. I only had a couple that were like this, but they were still very strong. And I'm going to be very open and honest with you. I'm going to really tell you some stuff that, you could judge me for, and that's fine. But I want to share it with you so that you know just how some of the ways where they manifest and how they manifest and how they sound like, and also how easy it is to bring healing to them, even though these are supposedly the strongest ones in there. Both of these were protectors. The first one was triggered last August. My husband and I had went out of town for a weekend, just over to Cleveland, which is about an hour and a half from our house, just to, overnight at a hotel, just to get away, because, we had been through so much. And it was supposed to be a really nice time. Well, coming back, let's just say my husband's driving was driving me up the wall. And it's, we drive very differently. I tend to process very quickly, have a quick reaction time. He's very safe. He's very safe. And not only that, he would get in the wrong lane a lot. And so I ended up, just on my phone, just, on Facebook or whatever. I just was not paying attention to his driving because I just found myself getting angrier and angrier. And I just didn't want to yell at him. This was supposed to be a nice time after all. So anyway, we get back to the Ohio-Pennsylvania border, and gas in Ohio is so much cheaper than Pennsylvania. So we go to the last gas station before, the last exit before PA, and there's a line to get to the gas tank. There's at least 2 cars ahead of us. And by the time it was our turn to pull out, we had probably 3 cars behind us. And my husband, with the slow reaction time, instead of going straight up right away when the car left, hesitated, which allowed another car just coming out off the interstate to cut us off, pull in there, and which angered not only us but the ones behind us. Well, I lost it. Now, understand, at this point, I had been on my phone with my daughter, who's 26, telling her about when we're going to get home. When this fragment manifested, I didn't even know I was on the phone with her. I had no idea whatsoever. That wasn't even there. But this fragment came out and just started yelling the F word really loud. My middle finger went up in the air. My husband puts it down, and you have to understand, he hates the F word. I mean, that's not something allowed in our house. We both don't have a tolerance for it, and it's not something I normally say. So anyway, I'm saying the F word, my middle finger's in the air, he puts it down, I put it back up, he puts it down, I put the other hand up with the middle finger. Yeah, so we're going back and forth and back and forth. And all of a sudden on the phone, I hear my daughter saying, "Mom, this isn't you." And as soon as she said it, I'm like, "You're right, it's not me. I don't act like this. This isn't normal for me. This is not how I would react to this situation." And so I talk to the fragment and I just say, "Why are you so mad at my husband?" Because I knew from what was going on that she was mad at him. And I heard her speak inside of my head. Remember, I'm not in the spirit realm. This is all inside of my head. I heard her inside of my head say, "Because he let them take your leg." Your leg, not her leg, your leg. Okay? She knew she was a fragment. She knew she wasn't me. It wasn't her leg taking it was mine. So she's like, "I'm mad because he let them take your leg." So I turned to my husband and I said, "Hun," he goes, "I want you to know that this is a fragment. It's not me. This fragment is mad because you let them take her leg." Now, my husband would usually, say, "Well, the doctor said we had to. You would have died, blah, 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 blah." If he would have said anything like that, this fragment probably would have physically attacked him. I mean, she was really angry. If he would have given any excuse whatsoever, it would have been enough to trigger her even more. But the Holy Spirit was there. And my husband heard the Holy Spirit. And I don't think he even realized it, but he did. And he turned to me, he goes, "Tell her I'm really sorry." And that's what she needed to hear. As soon as he said that, she turned to the Lord herself. I heard her inside. I heard her go to him and receive healing. And she was healed, and she's never manifested again because, she's on the good side now. Yeah, she's on the positive side. So that's how that one got healed. A few months later in November, right before Thanksgiving, I'm, making pies. And as I'm making pies, I hear this part come up, and I just kind of let it speak. I think sometimes with these guardians, you just need to let them speak. And this one was going on and on about, how God wasn't trustworthy and all the stuff that I don't believe. It's prayer doesn't work. Excuse me, that's what I do every day. How can I believe prayer doesn't work if that's what I do every day? But this part didn't believe it. And I could tell by the way she was talking that she was created my first month home from the nursing home. Now, when I was in the nursing home, they gave me pain meds. And I thought I needed them. When I got home, one of the first things I did was get off all pain meds. What I didn't realize was pain meds take care of your pain, so your body doesn't know how to anymore. It kind of, they kind of give amnesia to your body so it doesn't know how to deal with pain. So my first month home, I was in so much pain. It was so bad. There were nights I was lucky if I got 10 minutes of sleep. It was every night. And I kept thinking, oh, it's because I'm in a different bed, or it's, because I was in a nursing home for so long. I thought maybe I wasn't used to my bed. That wasn't it. It wasn't until I talked to a doctor later on that I realized what actually had happened. But anyway, this month was horrible, and this part was upset over it. So what I did was I let her talk, and all of a sudden I heard her say, "And Lord, don't you give me any BS about knowing the beginning from the end." As soon as she said that, I knew what she was referring to. One of my first fragments that was healed in the nursing home was a fragment that came up and said, "How can a loving God allow his daughter, to lose her leg?" And the Lord answered her and said, "The God that knows the beginning from the end," which meant pretty much that he was going to do something in this process. he was going to use this process, which he has, to do, to teach me stuff, to do things. And believe me, this is why I know how to deal with fragments. I wouldn't have known how if this hadn't happened to me. So yeah, there has been a lot of good that has come out of it, but she was pretty much letting him know about the pain she went through, and the pain just isn't worth anything she could ever learn in this process. She was letting him know that the process stunk. As soon as I understood what she carried for me and knew what she had done, then she allowed the Lord to come to heal her. Okay. So but in both cases, I didn't pray anything. I didn't introduce her to the Lord. I just let them talk. And then at the end of their talk, they were able to come to a place where they sought the Lord on their own. So I just want to encourage you that sometimes all they need to do is talk. And at the end, they'll seek the Lord on their own, because if you've been praying, Lord, come heal these fragments, they know what's going on. They know how healing comes. They can see what's going on inside most of the time. So you just allow them to talk, allow them to get it out. I did it in safe, areas. I didn't in the middle of Kmart start talking to my fragments and letting them voice. And even when I did in the car, the guy didn't see me putting my middle finger in the air. He had so much shame because he knew he did wrong. The last thing he was going to do was look at us. And it was summertime. His windows were closed. My windows were closed. And I doubt very much that he heard me, because, I wasn't saying it that loud. At least I don't think. I can be loud. But I just kind of wanted to share this with you to give some of the ways that you can do it. Just try it, especially if you have a pain and you say, Lord, come heal this fragment, and the pain goes away. That has been the number one way that people know that what I'm saying is true. And how, as they start doing it, they start seeing a change. I've had even some testimonies recently where I did pray with them about certain things, but it was as they would say, Lord, come heal these fragments, that in a couple weeks later, then they noticed the healing, because there were still some that were buried. When our fragments are buried, I can try to get them through prayer ministry, but they're buried. It can be hard to find them. They can be hiding. And unless I know how to go get them, I can't get them. But when they come up and you start to feel that headache and you're like, Lord, come heal these fragments, or you start to have memories and you say, Lord, come heal these fragments, or you start to have emotion come up out of nowhere. I mean, there's no reason for you to be depressed and you're depressed, or you wake up sad. A lot of times fragments are there when you wake up in the morning because your dreams have stirred them up. So that's a great time. First thing when you wake up, Lord, come heal any fragment that was stirred up through the night. Why not? If somebody says something that hurts your feelings, okay, Lord, come heal these fragments. Because you know what? Not only do you have the new fragment whose feelings were hurt, but you have all the fragments in there that just got stirred up because your feelings were just hurt. You remember, when we go through something that we've gone through before, it stirs up our fragments that are already there. So that's a great thing. When we get stirred up, when something happens, that's a perfect time to pray and ask the Lord to come heal your fragments. Now, if you want to read more about, what we've written about getting fragments healed, there's so much more than what I can share in this video. We do have the 2 books out, Broken to Whole, Healing for the Fragmented Soul, is 100% about fragments. It's what we knew then. It was actually during the writing of that book that I had my accident, that I had my amputation. That was all, we felt was part of the spiritual warfare, putting that book out. Then Matt and I have come out later with Divine Healing of the Spirit, Soul, and Body. There we're talking about a lot of different things, not just fragments. We also talk about the categories of, what I talked to you about, the guardians, the functional, and even the emotional course. So feel free to pick up either book or whatever you feel like doing. If you want a prayer appointment, I'll be honest with you, right now I'm scheduling in August unless I have cancellations. You can go to my website, www.debalm.org. You can request an appointment, but again, I am scheduling in August, so it is quite a wait. Hopefully, as things are quieting down, we can get through them quicker and I can get people scheduled sooner. But right now, there is a number of months to wait to get an appointment. All right. So I hope you all have a great day. I'm sorry for the quality of this video. It's hard for me to hold this computer still. So I do want to apologize for that. I hope I didn't talk too fast because I do have a tendency to do that. But I just hope you all have a great day. Please, any comments, let me know. Anything that you try that works, any testimonies. I'd love to hear them. You can put them on my Facebook page. You can inbox me. You can do it through the website, the Balm. You can just send your testimonies or whatever. My email address is also debalm@hotmail.com, so you can email them to me. Once again, that's debalm, DEBALM @hotmail.com. I would love to hear your testimonies. I would love to hear what God's showing you about this. But thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great night. Bye.